everyone. Hi, it's great to be here, and thank you so much, Gonçalo, for flying in from Portugal to join us today.
Thank you so much. My pleasure.
Gonçalo, you have built PlatformE, this pioneering technology company that's on a mission to drastically reduce overproduction and waste in the fashion industry. Now, I know you're an industrial engineer by background, so what is it that sparked the idea for PlatformE?
Yeah, and again, thank you so much for having me. This is really inspiring. I studied industrial engineering, but I was always very passionate. I love art and creativity. So I had like 2 or 3 years of hardcore engineering. I worked in logistics, consultancy. But then I created a 3D studio, so nothing to do with engineering. And we were doing movie and advertising visual effects. And we were listening before, working with science fiction. And this was really different from what I was doing before. And 6 or 7 years ago, I was having lunch with a good friend, the founder of Farfetch. Farfetch is a very, very large platform selling luxury globally. And he was telling me, it's really strange because to sell fashion, we need physical stock. And I don't know why we're still producing before selling. And because I have my 3D background and my agency, I started playing around and we started developing sneakers and shirts, hoodies, t-shirts in 3D. And the visuals were quite good. So we were discussing on that, and eventually the idea surged. And the intersection of, again, the 3D background, and in this case fashion, it was the inception of PlatformE.
So you launched in 2015, received funding from TLF Ventures, Amarim, and Natalie Massenet, who's the founder of Net-a-Porter. Your first client was Karl Lagerfeld. What was behind that early success?
I think we were, this is strange because I'm talking about our work, but we were and we are very, very good. So it's yeah.
Naturally.
Yeah, so designers and high-end brands, they are so specific on their needs. If you're not 100%, they will never accept things visually, creatively. And we achieved this level, the visual reality, and we had many teams flying over to our offices because they couldn't believe we were doing things digitally. They thought we were getting products and photographing or taking videos. So the visuals were really impressive. And back then, this was new. Nowadays, we see a lot of digital fashion, which is amazing. But I would say we were the very first ones to achieve this superior level in terms of visual quality. And I guess those investors and initial brands acknowledged that quality. Yeah.
So can you talk us through how PlatformE works? Show us some of those visuals.
Yeah, for sure. So I've prepared very easy slides. So everything starts with visual creation. This was something that we did for Louis Vuitton maybe 3-4 years ago. And when we did these puffer jackets, we had no physical sample. So it was really like receiving the designs and defining everything, physics, the textures, and obviously the animation. And as you can see, it's impossible to do this with photos, with videos. It goes a step, or maybe more than one step beyond that. And another example with Karl Lagerfeld, as you were saying, one of our very first clients. We've developed a new concept based on Karl's illustrations. And again, with their guidelines, we are not creators, we're the executors, the engineers. We developed this beautiful shirt, again, with these illustrations. And you can understand the fitting, you can understand the draping, etc. And this was our very first building block when we started PlatformE. As soon as we developed that, we understood that we had to connect it in let's say, the three main pillars. First and foremost, creating what we could call the digital twins, and then integrating in stores, and this could be online or physical stores, because people need to experience that. And the last pillar, which is probably the most important one, is the integration with factories and workshops. So this is beautiful, the virtual and digital representation, it's amazing, but if in the end factories cannot produce it, it's not worth it, right? So we integrated with our software tool our client stores and our clients' factories. And now what we're doing is essentially taking this to the next level. This is your beautiful Dior tote bag with your name.
I want all of these bags.
Yeah. So before our technology existed, by the way, this is a real case. You can go to dior.com and you will see probably not Kate's bag, but you will see this bag. Before utilizing our technology to sell every single option of this bag, you would have to, again, produce and take a photo, doing some post-production, editing, etc. With our technology, you can replicate every single option, colors, and in this case, even personalizing it. And you can definitely sell before the product exists. And this sounds obvious, but it's not obvious. So 99.9% of fashion is sold because it exists physically, which is unbelievable, unbelievable. In every single other industry, main industry, you buy a car before it exists. You buy an apartment before it exists. You don't buy fashion before being produced, which to me, in 2023, it's not acceptable. And we have proven that you can actually sell fashion before it exists. And then obviously, as we have integrated in this case Dior, but any other brand's website or stores, you can experience as if it was a regular product that you have in your warehouse, in your stores. And ultimately, because again, we've developed the integration with the third pillar, our order management system sends the order directly to the workshop or to the factory. And for the first time ever, we have real-time visibility of the process. So we expose both to the brand, the store, and the end customer the exact status of production. It is in production, ready to be shipped, etc. This level of visibility, it's very, very hard to find in fashion. You don't know what's happening behind the scenes. No one knows what happens in factories. We show in real time the status of production. Yeah, so we're definitely doing this, not because it's nice and beautiful, but because there is a mission behind it. As you know, fashion's contribution to the planet, it's not the best one, I would say. I'm being nice here. And the level of overproduction, to me, it's simply not acceptable. And I do think that with technology, especially things that are digitally based, we will enter a new era where we can interact, we can experience fashion again before it exists. Eventually buying then, if we really are passionate about that beautiful dress or shoes or bag, and ultimately drastically reducing overproduction. And to me, if luxury or fashion as a whole generate waste, that's simply not acceptable. So we need to enter a new social and behavioral era where it's fine to engage with products, but it's not fine to overproduce and to generate waste. This is, what we fight for.
When you're approaching new potential clients about this technology, what are some of their questions, hesitations?
Yeah, with designer brands, luxury, they were always very, very protective of their quality, the visual quality, I mean. And again, they had to test and validate until it's really perfect. And sometimes we need to be, from a digital point of view, even better. So the product is actually better than the real one from a visual standpoint. So originally they were really hesitating. Do we do this in 3D? Do we do this digitally? And now as leaders led, we are seeing the followers coming. So there is a new wave. And when we started working with Gucci 5 years ago, Fendi, etc., it was really an eye-opener. We opened the door, and now many other fashion brands in the high-end space are following. So I think that hesitation in terms of quality is now gone. Everyone trusts this technology. So I would guess this is now staying. And I'm pretty sure the next few years it will be the status quo. So working more and more with 3D and digital twins rather than producing 100% of the things that you develop.
I'm interested in why you started in the high-end space. So why luxury? When you're talking about overproduction and waste, you automatically think that it's going to be the mainstream, fast fashion, high street brands that are really responsible for that. So why did you target luxury brands?
It had to do with our network. So we were relatively close to Paris, Milan, London, and in those central cities in Europe, you tend to have higher-end, companies and designer brands rather than fast fashion. I'm not particularly so. Technology is quite abstract. We could work with luxury and with fast fashion or volume-led brands. By the way, it's what we want to do. And this year, in 2023, our strategic goal is to open another avenue in terms of business, really working with volume brands. So not working just with luxury. And for us, if we work with luxury from a visual and, again, quality standpoint, in principle, this is going to work with mid-market and volume brands. But you're completely right. So we need to focus where the main problems are, and typically it's with volume.
And do you think customers are always going to want that instant gratification, though? What's the right kind of balance between physical stock and made to order?
Yeah, I don't have an answer to that. What I can tell you is it's definitely not 100% zero. So today it's 100% stock. We go into stores, even when we buy online, everything is in the warehouse, everything. And that's completely wrong. The architecture of fashion, the business model, it's completely broken. And I'll repeat this, completely broken. And by the way, the vast majority of fashion brands are financially broken because of that. So working on a negative working capital model, where first you need to invest to produce stock, and then you pray that everything gets sold. By the way, in the human history, no single brand sold consistently 100% of their stock. Not even, Chanel and Hermes and Gucci. There is always a season or a year or a couple of years where they don't sell everything. It's just the nature of fashion. It's trends, right? The business model is completely wrong. So we need to work on the new balance. I don't have an answer to you, but I would say probably 20%, 80%. My real expectation would be a third being digitally experienced and 2/3 with stock and inventory. But the future will tell.
And as we move towards that model, what's going to be the role of physical stores?
Physical stores will be more flagship stores, experiential. So today, the vast majority of physical stores are stock points. Everyone talks about experience, etc., but essentially the base model is having stock and selling stock, right? And we will migrate into more experiences and talking and leading with a brand rather than just going to a stock point. And it's very likely that we will have the exact same catalog there with fewer pieces. And instead of entering and seeing a dress with 10 different colors, you will see 1 or 2 dresses. It's like buying a car. You will do your test drive, but then you will enter another room with a screen, and you will have an endless catalog of different leathers, different fabrics, different options that you can select. And then you will pick up in the same store, or you will receive in your home. So we will have more this multi-channel going to store. The instant gratification will be there for sure, but not 100% of stock again. And this will have an extended catalog that is digitally powered.
And what's it going to take for this to become mainstream?
It's happening. So we're seeing this tectonic shift as we speak. The final answer, it's really the connection to the supply chain. In the front end, in the client-facing part, this is in motion, as you see. And every single brand that we work with is live. So this is not an R&D-ish or innovation thing. It's like they are selling, and they're selling dozens, if not hundreds of millions of digital inventory powered by us, and I'm pretty sure powered by other companies in the present and in the future. The missing piece in the puzzle, it's the supply chain part. It's connecting upstream, because today, processes are still pretty much as they were in the 80s or even the 70s. So again, product development, buying, sending to stores, etc. So we're flipping this model and having a lot of products, specific categories, that again, you don't need to produce before selling. And I'm really passionate about this last pillar, because if we crack the solution or one of the solutions in the supply chain part, then we will migrate into a new business model for fashion for sure.
When do you see that happening?
1 to 3 years. So it's not a generational thing. It will happen now. I'm not saying this is binary, everyone taking it or not. We will see clear leaders. We're seeing some big companies like PVH, Tommy Hilfiger and Calvin Klein. They have now maybe 50% of things designed digitally. Hugo Boss. So there are some brands already, I wouldn't say 100% there, but partially entering this new way of working. So 1 to 3 years to become mainstream.
I'd love to talk to you about this mission, which is really bold. And as a purpose-led company, how do you make that balance between purpose and profits?
As my investors are not here, I can tell you that...
Tell us the truth.
Yeah, I can tell you the truth. So I really, wake up every single day trying to make an impact. And I'm hopeful that revenues will follow impact. But to be honest, I'll be very, very happy if we're able to change the industry, making less millions, rather than the other way around. If you would offer me $1 billion exit with no impact, I wouldn't go for it. This is just a personal thing. I'm really frugal, and I want to leave, maybe because I'm a father of 3 kids, I want to leave fashion in a better place. And hopefully, as we build value, because ultimately this has also financial value and less risk, revenues will follow. But we're definitely mission first and revenues second. Again, if my investors were here, I would say 50-50. Yeah, for sure.
And in terms of making an impact, you've also launched some other businesses. Can you tell us a little bit about Skinvaders and Balaclava?
Yeah, and it's interesting because it intersects with what we've heard before. So this was a side project that we started 3 years ago, and now it's like a fully fledged company. We've spinned off last year. So Skinvaders was the very first company to license real-life brands and just developing digital catalogs for video games and spatial or immersive platforms. So traditional brands, obviously, they develop physical products, and we took those catalogs and we transposed this into digital worlds. And Skinvaders is trying to crack a very, very complex problem. We were talking before about interoperability. So if you have this beautiful, let's say, jersey, a tracksuit, you cannot wear it in multiple games or multiple worlds, because there is a technical issue there. So we're trying to crack the formula to do, this is a hard word, retopology, which is essentially changing the aesthetics from game to game. And again, in some games it's more cartoonish, in some games or worlds it's more realistic. We need to find formulas to accelerate what I would call the portability effect. I don't believe in interoperability. Sadly, I think that players will keep their own IP, but portability, so I own this asset and I will be able to export into different worlds or games, I think that will be a reality. So we licensed Puma. It was our first brand 3 years ago, and literally, so when you see digital Puma in a video game, that's us. That's Skin Invaders, and we believe in the new invasion of skins, digital fashion, and this is one of the projects and new companies we're working on. Yeah.
And Balaclava?
And yeah, another project. We wanted to find the new DNA for future brands. And last year we launched the very first what we could call phygital or cyber physical brand, which is Balaclava. You can check it at balaclava.com. And we've launched it with Call of Duty. Call of Duty is probably the most played game at the moment, with hundreds of millions of active users. So when you buy Balaclava, and again, this is not a concept, it exists. This was developed. This is, this is open, live. When you buy a Balaclava product, you get the physical product, and then you have the digital version of it. And the promise is whenever a new game is opened to receive external content, we will have a version so you can download exactly the same product and wear it in that specific game or a social world. And you have the digital asset and the physical asset, which is relatively new. So you typically have either the physical or in the future the digital. This has both. And on top of that, you have a digital certificate, so you can prove you're the owner. And we have the physical authenticity label. So we had to tick many boxes to crack, again, the DNA. And this was the very first time any brand in the world did that. Now we've seen a few other brands entering the market. And more than developing a brand, we want to develop the framework to help future brands, again, going in both in real life and virtual worlds or spatial worlds in the future. So we're really working on all of those dimensions.
Ladies and gentlemen, the new DNA of future fashion.
Yeah.
So what needs to happen to really accelerate this convergence of fashion and technology?
Again, seeing is believing. And when you see a brand like this in the market, then you believe it's possible. And this sounds, when we launch things, it sounds, it was just a last mile. It is very hard developing every single concept to work at scale. It can work very well. It can work very well, on a controlled room, on a controlled lab. If it goes to the market, you will see cracks. You will see what doesn't work. So, as more and more companies develop and launch products, you will see many other following. And again, we're seeing now the transition from 100% physical to phygital. So it's a very exciting moment in time. And everyone can now develop physical and digital fashion. It's happening.
So Gonçalo, I think we have about 1 minute left. So finish this sentence for me. The future of luxury fashion is?
That's tricky. The future is valuing responsibility as you value your customers. So it's not just about selling products or services or experiences. It's also valuing the planet, resources. So in other words, luxury brands will have creativity, will do and develop incredible products and experiences, but it's very, very important that they do it on a sustainable way, responsible way, ideally generating no waste. So that's the future.
Making an impact.
Yes, making the impact.
Thank you so much, Gonçalo. It's been
pleasure.
a pleasure chatting to you.
Thank you so much.